The Baltic dusk draped the naval base at Kiel in cold steel hues. U-30, a Type WWII U-boat, rested like a predator in slumber. Lieutenant Fritz-Julius Lemp stood on the conning tower, his gloved hands gripping the railing, as seagulls wheeled above. Germany had declared war on Poland that morning, but here at sea, the world was still eerily calm. Lemp's crew prepared in silence, torpedoes checked, engines murmuring, charts unrolled. He thought of the sea as both shield and grave. "We patrol the western approaches," his commanding officer had said. Beneath the surface, orders were simple: intercept enemy vessels. Yet no one had uttered the phrase all feared: unrestricted submarine warfare. As the U-30 slipped from harbor under a waning moon, the first ripples of the Battle of the Atlantic began to form. 3 days into patrol, the Atlantic spread wide and weary under sullen skies. Inside the cramped hull, oil, metal, and sweat mingled with the hum of engines. Lemp read the coded message. A war patrol now had new meaning. Britain stood defiant. Any hostile ship was to be engaged. He whispered the words aloud, tasting the gravity, without warning. The crew exchanged glances, some hardened, some young and pale. They knew these orders would change everything. Through the hydrophones came the faint pulse of a steamship miles away. "Merchant, northward bound," the sonar officer murmured. Lemp gave a simple nod. The war had reached the surface, and he would be its unseen hand beneath it. Command weighed heavy, and for the first time the sea felt endless yet suffocating.
On the evening of September 3rd, the periscope rose through the churning water. The lens caught the silhouette of a large ship against the horizon, smoke trailing neatly from twin funnels. "British passenger liner," reported the first officer. Lemp hesitated. His throat tightened. The chart said this route led from Glasgow to Montreal, the SS Athenia. Through the scope, he saw her decks lined with civilians, families unaware of the war that had just begun. Yet his orders echoed, unyielding. "She may be armed," someone suggested. The logic was thin, but the fear of missing a hostile vessel was greater. Lemp's voice, calm but distant, finally cut through the tension. "Prepare 1 torpedo." Around him, the crew responded, mechanical precision cloaked in moral dread.
Silence gripped the command room. Lemp stared through the periscope one last time, the Athenia framed in the glass. "Fire 1, he said. The hiss of compressed air broke the stillness. A white streak darted from the bow into the dark sea. Seconds became eternity. Lemp held his breath. The crew waited. Then a muffled thud followed by a dull roar. The U-boat shuddered slightly as the torpedo found its mark. Above, a column of smoke and light rose against the twilight sky. "Hit! She's hit!" someone exclaimed. But the celebration died in Lemp's throat. He watched lifeboats spilling into the sea. Faces, lanterns, shapes scattered across the waves. He lowered the periscope slowly, heart heavy. Duty felt hollow in that moment. He whispered, almost to himself, "God forgive us."
Hours later, the radio reports began to spread across fleets and continents. The Athenia had sunk northwest of Ireland. 112 souls were lost. London called it an act of barbarism. Berlin denied involvement. Lemp sat in his narrow bunk, staring at a flickering lamp. The faces from the periscope haunted him. A woman holding a child, sailors launching lifeboats amid fire. Kriegsmarine Command sent new orders. Report silence. No record of the engagement was to exist. History would bury truth beneath secrecy. The crew spoke in hushed tones, some claiming it was all a mistake. Yet the sound of the explosion lingered, an unending echo through the hull. Lemp knew the Atlantic had awoken, and there would be no return to innocence. Weeks passed, the Atlantic growing colder. The crew of U-30 maintained their patrols, hunted shadows, and avoided detection. At night the horizon glowed faintly from burning ships far away. "We started something we cannot undo," murmured the engineer. Lemp gave no answer. He'd received a private message. Admiral Donitz insisted no civilian vessels were ever to be reported as targets. The truth was locked away, a secret shared only by silence. Lemp ordered the U-boat deeper, where light could no longer find them. The hum of the engines thrummed like a heartbeat trapped beneath water. The men prayed quietly, some to God, others to the sea. The boundaries between hunter and hunted blurred more with each empty hour.
Equals? A British destroyer prowled above, its propellers cutting like blades. Inside the U-boat, the world was pressure and breath. Lemp listened to the sonar pings chasing them, each pulse a heartbeat of doom. "Silent running," he ordered, voice low. Tools rattled as men froze. Sweat dripped. The air thickened. A depth charge detonated somewhere nearby, shaking the hull and extinguishing the lamp. Metal groaned like a creature in pain. Some prayed, others cursed. Lemp steadied himself, hand against the wall, feeling the pulse of survival itself. His mind drifted. Faces from the Athenia, voices from Berlin, and the heavy shadow of war's first mistake. When the destroyer finally moved on, the silence it left was as deafening as the thunder before it. Equals when U-30 finally surfaced near Wilhelmshaven, the crew stepped into gray morning light. Reporters waited, curious eyes scanning heroes of the sea. Lemp stood silent, eyes distant, as if he'd left his soul somewhere west of Ireland. The official story praised his patrol's bravery. No mention of the Athenia, no record of its destruction. Officers shook hands, medals gleamed. Yet as the flag fluttered above the harbor, he felt only the weight of memory. War had machinery, orders, procedures, but beneath them were people, unknown to history, lost to its tides. The harbor smelled of diesel and pride, but to Lemp, it reeked faintly of smoke and seawater. He looked to the horizon and thought, not of victory, but of ghosts.
In Berlin, officials worked feverishly to cover the Athenia disaster. Propaganda offices drafted statements denying any U-boat involvement. Within the Kriegsmarine, silence was enforced. Lemp was summoned to headquarters, where he stood before Admiral Donitz. "This never occurred," said the Admiral quietly, eyes narrowing. "The Führer forbids civilian targets. You understand?" Lemp nodded, though the guilt gnawed deeper than the sea's pressure. Outside, flags fluttered and bands played. The illusion of order reigned. But behind everyone's eyes, truth festered. In the coming years, more ships would fall, more waters darken. The Athenia would become a whispered lesson, a beginning no one dared remember aloud. Years later, as the Atlantic claimed its countless dead, the name Athenia returned in history's pages. Survivors told of terror and bravery under fire, of lights flickering on dark waves. Lemp's fate was sealed in May 1941, when his own U-boat vanished near Iceland. Some said it was poetic justice, others called it tragedy. But in the cold expanse of war, morality was as fragile as a periscope lens. The Athenia's sinking had signaled more than the start of naval warfare. It marked the awakening of a world where conscience drowned beneath flags and orders. The sea remembered, even when men tried not to. It kept their secrets, whispered in its depths for those willing to listen.